Now I see you was putting boots on the ground. You was actually helping women and helping people transition, correct?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
doing that, some kind of there was some kind of you met at a crossroad, right, with the organization or organizations, and we tied this whole philanthropy accountable. Could you explain to people what you was telling me? Even though you gotta realize she was into helping people, part of a lot of part of non-profit organization that would help people and whatnot. She spoke about that, but she gonna explain to us about why we entitled um this show a segment whole philanthropy accountable. Explain to us why you wanted to talk about this and give us an understanding of what's going on.
and and that's why I said that that was my segue, because remember, a lot of people don't know me. And the reason why people don't know me is because in October 2019, when I became so passionate inside this movement, um in opposition of the new jails, the $11 billion new jails in New York City, and what it meant, at that time I had became public, but before that I haven't, because there wasn't a need to. I just live in regular life. And that's what I'm trying to show you. From prison, I got connected with Barred Prison Initiative, which is a great program. It was a great program, and they supported us well in prison, as well as we gained our associates, some people masters, bachelors, right? And so what happened is, upon release, after serving 11 unjust years, knowing how difficult it is to get a job in society, Barred Prison Initiative had met me at the door, their reentry director. They met me at the gate like days before I was released, talked about reentry, and it was all good. All the college students link up after they come from release, connect together, share resources. It was the bomb, right? So now the thing is that this is white people providing us the services because they know how to get money, and then they know where the issues are to provide the services to get that money from philanthropy. So philanthropy, why we should hold philanthropy accountable is because philanthropy has significant spending power and influence as equivalent to the government, and the idea that 400 years of slavery means free labor, means that the black people who were enslaved in the United States, in this country, that money, that free labor, that's like us not getting no checks for the last 400 years. No checks, no money. And all this work that we're doing, like you just said, time is money. It was for 400 years, it was nothing. But people have benefited, people have gained, right? And then their thousands have turned to 10,000s. Their 10,000s, 100,000. Their 100,000s, millions. Their millions, billions. So now the billions that they've invested from the property and all of that cotton and all of that other stuff that was worth all of that money that nobody got paid for, it exists in philanthropy. And so when they talk about tax the rich, is because the economy is going to shut down because we depended on money that we had to take from now. And then now people don't have jobs. So they don't have jobs. They definitely don't have money. They don't have money. They can't pay their rent. They don't have to pay their rent. This is going to be a purge situation. We trying to avoid that. So we have to tax the rich in the same way that we did in the 1920s during the Great Depression. And so the way that they decided to do that was to make an agreement with the rich. The rich made an agreement with the government that they will become a philanthropic organization, a foundation rather. And foundations, they have endowments. Endowments is like a bank account. And like the Ford Foundation, who I speak out against, where the harm had begun during my 1-year internship there back in 2017, they have $14 billion in an endowment. And they have funded a lot of major movements, like the civil rights movements. They funded people like Michelle Alexander that I have spoken about, other individuals like James Baldwin, Martin Luther King. So imagine if they don't give Martin Luther King the amount of money that they gave him to do what he did, we wouldn't be where we're at. So when we talk about holding philanthropy accountable, you cannot fund these type of movements that advance Black people and Black liberation and removes a lot of barriers to our success in this country coming from where we have came from. You understand what I'm saying? Like, they're known for some very significant changes in our lives that benefits us every day to this day and probably forever. You understand? But the problem is when they begin to invest in the idea of $11 billion jails, you understand what I'm saying? And then it's not about people's lives. It's about something else: money, power, influence, a continuation of slavery, control, because these jails are said to be the most technological, and it's said to be the model for the rest of the country. That's a legacy of slavery by definition, 13th Amendment. So, you know, I get passionate about this because I'm Black. I'm Black first. You know, a lot of these movements, I reach out for a lot of support. People would say, oh, don't get angry, because now I'm an angry Black woman. So I'm just supposed to be inflicted with all of this pain. You understand what I'm saying? From white supremacy tactics and other Black people who want to be a part of that lifestyle. You understand? So they're willing to do anything to keep getting that bidag, that bag, that bread, that cash, that moolah, that whatever you know makes you confident. Like, I know what it is, you know. So my whole thing is we have to also address that as well. The harm that we're doing to ourselves, because it's like, if we don't, then we continue to focus on something that has strings on something where we really do have the scissors. You know, it just takes having that tough conversation too.
All right, I'm sorry I'm interrupting. Let's talk about the cult type environment, and the unfortunate passing of your sister. May she rest in power. If you want to talk about that, right?
Rest in power.
You have a GoFundMe account that's in the description. Can you explain to people why you feel the organization you were a part of, or work for, actually a cult? We talked about it in a little detail, as well as the unfortunate passing of your sister. Can you explain to us, from your own personal view, why you feel that way, and talk about your sister?
Right. I try to segue as fast as possible, right? Because all of this is connected, right? Where Bard Prison Initiative, this prestigious college, comes and brings a whole bunch of Black students out, and they funnel us into this whole community, right? That they're creating for us that we need, but that they're controlling, right? And so when I get the opportunity to go to a place like Ford Foundation, because I can't help the women come from where I come from in the way that I want to because of funding. And so that's one of it. And then I'm not in a position of power. So now I took on that internship at the Ford Foundation in order to gain those skills to have my own organization. Instead, I was targeted for being assertive, for not allowing the HR director, who's white, who's older, you know, to talk down to me after I had already experienced a third interview. So we had to go through 3 interviews. And by the third interview, it was a way of like breaking us down in order to build us in some way, somehow. So this whole elite status thing that goes on there, I don't know nothing about. You understand what I'm saying? I'm coming straight from prison, and I have something else in my mind, which is to gain skills and move forward after this 1 year. I don't know that other people have plans for me, you know, because there were images being taken of me inside of these spaces. And then I would just see them at these elite parties. It's just like pictures of me like I'm some fucking charity case. You know what I'm saying? And it's like at that time, I've been surveilled and monitored for 11 years. And they had the nerve. I didn't even have the voice to be able to say, take that shit down right now, like I would right now, because of the damage that the system do to you. You know, so I was advancing in work. I advanced in education, but emotionally and mentally, the abuse and the harm that went unrepaired, right? So when you talk about my sister's death, is a lot of things that I have spoken out about that I didn't know I made myself a target for. You understand what I'm saying? Because I didn't understand white supremacy. I didn't understand white supremacy tactics. I didn't understand that a place like the Ford Foundation, who could fund for so many Black liberation advancements, could also be as evil as what had happened to me and others. You know, so to discuss that is to say, I found out from the job, Borealis Philanthropy, from them. You understand? It was from a formerly incarcerated person, but it was while I was there. I was outcast. I was blackballed, X, Y, and Z. I just put out a YouTube video. Y'all can check it out. I read an email communication that I had wrote about that. So as a complaint, y'all can check that out to save a long story short. So that harm from there, after 6 months, I was, before I got hired to the second job, that harm still exists. I was having these traumas from that harm. So the reason why this is important is because that email that I speak of on my Puzzle the Revolutionary channel on YouTube, you know, I just posted that last video. And so the reason why that email communication is important is because that was the complaint that I had. And if you listen to what I said and how I wrote it, I didn't understand how powerful it was. All I know is that I'm not going to allow somebody to talk to me this way. And at the same time, I'm trying to exercise this professionalism stuff that I had just learned. And it was going well. You understand what I'm saying? So now this is how it is. It's going well. But then I don't understand how I'm being funneled into Borealis Philanthropy and used. And so it was there that I told my story for the first time about losing 9 appeals, because the trauma at Ford had kicked that up, because the third interview singled me out just for my case, me and other formerly incarcerated people. So this was a program for formerly incarcerated people. It's targeting a certain group that they don't even acknowledge our disability. They don't acknowledge the trauma from the system and how they continue that same trauma by using these white supremacy tactics on us. You know what I'm saying? So, being on parole in that situation is not easy as well, right? Because when I had to work at Borealis Philanthropy, I'm working on a criminal justice initiative fund as a program associate, doing research all across this country and having conversations with all the Black leaders, not all of them, but a lot of them that we don't hear about and we don't know about. So we were funding Black leaders across this country who were never, ever funded by philanthropy, because philanthropy just 10 years ago never even had Black people in that space. So now we're starting to dominate this space, and the president of this organization had created this organization to be something revolutionary, to where people like me, ex-felons, people who are transgender, people who are immigrants, people who are Black women, Black people, and other minority groups, they were given positions of power. You understand what I'm saying? Roles that they qualify for based on their education and their expertise. You understand? But also understand they can learn more on the job. So number one, you're hiring people from vulnerable communities. And then we getting millions of dollars from places like the Ford Foundation, and we taking those millions, splitting it into tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands, and then giving it to Black leaders all across this country that's working on bail reform and police reform. So that means that it didn't matter if you murdered somebody, raped somebody, they said you robbed somebody, they was just bailing people out. You know why? Because the rich people can have those same crimes, but they have the money so they can be bailed out. But people like Khalif Browder, who got accused of stealing a backpack, a $20 backpack, and his bail was $500, he couldn't afford it. So now he spends 3 years in jail and now had to allegedly committed suicide coming home. You understand? I wasn't there, so I don't know. So the thing about that system is a two-tier system. And through my research and my data, having this role in the position and my own experience, right? And so when the data collected across the country came back that 80% of people who are bailed out of jail, no matter what the charges, 80% of that population is found not guilty at all. But if they're not bailed out and they can't afford the bail and they're spending that time in jail, then the guilty rate is 95%. That's astonishing. That number is astonishing. 95% guilty when you're trapped in there, but 80% not guilty when you're able to still be a human, go to work, take care of your kids, take showers every day, So this type of thing is like, it brought so much information that was concrete, not just my own thoughts or theories, but based off of like real life data. Nothing that you could ever read about. You're talking to people directly that is doing the work, and that's doing work that we'll never, ever hear about, and they try to stifle it. And as far as the policing work, I had just gotten started on this, so I wasn't too much invested in that work, but I know that they were funding things like, also the bail, we were also funding abolition work. So what people need to understand is this. When I talk about what happened to me in the white supremacy tactics that was tried on me, especially at Borealis Philanthropy, and when I talk about Borealis Evil Cult, the satanic cult training that they sent me to that had failed, and the reason why they after me today, when I talk about that, I need people to understand that the population is 85% Black of their staff, the demographic. 85% of their staff demographic is Black. About 15% is white. You understand? Not only just Black, Spanish, Asian, and other nationality, but the minority race is white. And the people who had infiltrated this organization was Black women. You understand what I'm saying? All Black women and one Black man and one Asian. These are the ones who have caused me harm. So this is what I want to talk about, because yes, I understand somebody explained to me that, that's also part of white supremacy, but it's like, you know what I'm saying? What are we really doing? You understand what I'm saying? And then it's like, I became passionate about that movement, and then I gave my testimony because I'm in these spaces where they claim to want to know. you know, what's really going on behind bars. Ford is investing millions of dollars to figure out what's going on with women. Like I've said at conference roundtables, big roundtables where elected officials be sitting at and speaking at. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm hearing things from a complete different angle, as well as having a complete different experience. What good am I in this space if I don't use it to try to teach these people who allegedly they don't want to know? Because they do want to know, but they want to know what they want to know. They don't want you going ahead and thinking that you could go ahead and start your own movement without us. Nah, they started to fund that when I decided to do that. And so I'm thinking they with me because 85% is Black, and we uplift Black power, Black women, and Black everything, as well as every other vulnerable group, including people with disabilities. You understand what I'm saying? So if I feel like I'm a part of something revolutionary, my guard is let down. And so when they offer me help, because my trauma from everything that I'm learning on the job, as well as what happened to me at the Ford Foundation with that HR director, you understand that I spoke about, and I sent an email about to that job. That's when they sent me this HR director at Borealis, right? I know I'm talking fast, so y'all can rewind this when it comes back, but for those who are not familiar with the story. But this is important because this is a job. You understand what I'm saying? This is an employee. This is not somebody in the street that just did be dirty. This is an employer that is funding Black lives, that is funding Black movement, that's funding abolition work, that's funding shit that we would trust them. You understand what I'm saying? And we cannot trust them until they answer to the shit that they've done. You know, because while they have fired every single part of that satanic cult, what they haven't done is they haven't given me the name of that therapist who they paid for me to have that session. This is about, no.
Hold up, Puzzle, you keep saying satanic cult. Explain why you believe it's satanic cult.
Okay. Right, because I have all the information. Let me explain from here. I'm in this philanthropic job for a year and a half. After I met the new jails who I've met via email, like, you know, I was a part of a lot of different conversations. I got an email. I heard about the closed Rikers situation, but I wasn't in Rikers, so I didn't participate. And I'm trying to survive parole, facts, right? So anyway, I participated in one protest, and I got to learn about the no new jails and what they was about. But the reason why I always say hold philanthropy accountable is because this was the movement to stop these jails from being built. And then we could actually talk about investing that $11 billion into the communities for jobs, for healthcare, for everything, infrastructure, all these other things, right? And so since that's off the table, we understand that we're going to have another legacy during our generation and our kids' generation of slavery and oppression for Black America. So, you know, I was with that. My whole life, I've waited for something like this. So to be a part of it, that's what I did. And so at first, because of the conflict of my job, you know, I didn't know what the rules was around like the conflict at the time, but then I figured it wasn't a conflict. I took time off of work to do this, you know, but I'm protesting against my job's largest funders. 75%, doesn't matter what private conversations we have about them, we still need their money, right? And so I guess I did something wrong, even though I did something right that was bigger and better. And so satanic cult comes in because after this protest, it kicked up so much for me as I'm transitioning finally to be 16 and a half years later off of prison time, right? So now the HR director offered me services, therapy, breath work. They offered me a healing coach that was a 25-year former activist. So she was coaching me on activism because I was brand new to it. And they also was for therapy sessions. So I had two different therapists. The first therapist I seen a few times, and then I was like, I don't need therapy. I'm going to just start my music. So they started to fund my music. They started to fund all of my studio time. They started to fund my puzzle power and leadership movement as from this job, and what I was learning helped me to birth it. You know, the no new jails movement that happened, I joined it towards the end, but I was trying to advocate for them for funding, because places like the Ford Foundation, they was telling all the foundations, other foundations don't fund them. They don't know what they're talking about, but you need the money and also to show what you're talking about sometimes, you know what I'm saying? So just to rule them out and outcast them in that way, it just kicked up what had happened to me at the Ford Foundation. So, you know, the idea that, I don't know how to get in because it seems like we're speeding up, but the idea that philanthropy philanthropy funds organizations like 501(c)(3)s. That's what Borealis Philanthropy was. And if 75% of their funding comes from them, they are to be held accountable, because if people are using money to manipulate people like me, who have been caged for so long and who had these disadvantages, especially with technology, you learn of every single disadvantages because you're providing me with those services. And then it comes to find out I had stopped taking therapy. They started paying for studio time instead of as a form of therapy, right? But then towards the end, I didn't realize that this team that they had hired for me, they were helping me and hurting me at the same time, because they would be opening me up about sensitive topics and sensitive things, but then they would close me back up. And then they're not certified to do what they was even doing to me. Like the HR director is having therapy sessions with me, and it, because I needed it, you understand what I'm saying? I'm having it because of the level of trauma that I'm having, not just from being incarcerated so long, but what that means for society. And that was a part of my movement, was to have other women join and us heal from having that same level of solidarity, so that we know we're not alone in these feelings, you know. But so this is the time where I was very vulnerable, the most vulnerable ever anybody could be in their life. And it would never happen again, because for it to happen again, I would have to be a kid all over again and not know the things that I don't know, that I do know now, right? So when they had taken advantage of me, the human resource director of Borealis Philanthropy, this black woman who had a LSMW license, and who was also, like, she came to parole with me one time. This is how personal in my life these people were. She came to me with parole, and while she was there, just asking me so many different questions. And most of it was how much I knew about the system. And because I wanted all of this stuff out of my head, I would tell everybody about what I was going through inside of prison, what I saw and what needs to be changed, right? Because I thought it was going to help. And so she started sending me to these trainings. So I had taken 8 weeks off of work at that time. So during these 8 weeks, they recommended that I do therapy, breath work. I can't say no to this. I'm going to lose my job. So I'm like, yeah, and plus I could benefit from the services. And during these time, like I said, they was not helping me heal. They would help me heal, but then they were learning what my triggers were. And they were asking me questions that later on I found out and confirmed that this was a satanic cult, because it was through one of these trainings that the human resource director was sending me to. And I was unaware of a lot of stuff that they knew because of my incarceration background, right? And so when they sent me to this training, it's like a regular training targeted for black women who go through what I go through. But then when I went there, that's not what it was. You had to fill out an application when you went there, right? Hold on a second. First of all, before I went there, it's in Manhattan, right? They rented me a hotel in Manhattan for 3 days. So off the grip, my director is telling me that it was weird. This training was weird because it's not during 9 to 5 business hours. But then the human resource director said she was going to be there. So she didn't really question it until after I told her that not only was she not there, that this was possibly a part of a satanic cult. It wasn't confirmed at the time, right? And so when I came to this building in Manhattan Friday night, at the time that it was held, right, 7 p.m. And so there was this guy on the phone, and he's talking on the phone, and he's like, yeah, this is some type of satanic cult training, but I'm just going here because so-and-so referred me. And then he was mumbling, like I wasn't listening to him, but I heard that loud because he was loud. So I was like, what? But then I go into the building and it's like 33 floors. So I knew he wasn't talking about my training until I actually saw him there. So when not only did I see him in the training, but what occurred at this training is what made me feel like, oh, and I don't want to know, because any training to where you got to be there for 3 days from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday, and then Friday from 7 to 11 p.m. And then you're not going to tell us what the training is about. And then when we complete the training, we can't tell nobody what the training is about. I don't need this training because I don't know what it's about, and I don't know how it's going to benefit me. It sounds like it'll be more harmful. That was my thinking, because the human resource director told me this was for black women. But when I went into this room, it's set up like a church with rows and aisles, you understand? And it fits about 150 seats, and there was like 100 filled in there. And they were black people. They were black men. They were black women. They were white men. They were white women. And then there were people who were professionals, but there was also people that smelled like they was just living on the street their whole life. And there were other people who looked like they was using drugs and want to get off of drugs bad, and that's why they're here. You know, so, and then it started off with a testimony. You know, so it had a whole bunch of black women and Spanish women and black men and Spanish men giving a testimony as to how the program changed their life, how this training changed their life. But they still not telling us what are we gonna do in the training. What is the training gonna look like? They just keep saying stuff like, you know, I was gay and my father disowned me, and now after this training I have a relationship with him. Or I've been going through a divorce, I couldn't find love in 10 years, and after this training I'm able to find love in 10 years. Or, you know, I never made a salary above $40,000. After this training I'm making 6 figures. Or I'm an aspiring artist, I was never able to get any shows, any performances, and after this training now I'm able to get shows and performances. And I'm like, really? That's interesting, because everybody here has perfect public speaking skills. And I know how hard it is, because they said that public speaking, the fear of public speaking is up there with being afraid of heights. Like, it's one of 3 of human beings' top fears is public speaking, like naturally, for many reasons, right? And so it's like everybody becomes perfect public speaking. This shit seems staged. So then it's weird, but I'm trying to see where this is going, because I already feel the energy of where this is going, you know? So these people are dressed weird, like the Come Into America movie, where they have like those pads and shit on their shirts and buttons, and just looking like kind of like some type of army, but not really, you know what I'm saying? It looks like an outfit more than that, but it still symbolizes something. So anyway, so now there's the facilitator is black, right? So she's telling everybody in the room to look to the person next to you and tell them what your problem is. So I was like, what? First of all, I had a hard time talking about it. Second of all, before I was able to enter into this room, I was supposed to fill out an application that asked me a lot of personal questions that I've never seen nowhere. And it was based off of, did somebody in your family die? Did you lose a loved one? Did you lose your wife? Like weird stuff that I told you that everybody testimony is for. But they didn't have nothing on there for formerly incarcerated people, so I had to write that in. You know, but it was very invasive, those questions, very, very invasive. And so for me to sit there and have not knowledge of that and uncomfortable with that, and I just answered and skimmed through it. And what I didn't answer, they made sure that I had to answer it before going in there, right? That's how intense it got in the beginning. So now when they told everybody to talk together and tell them what their problem is, I went to the bathroom, right? And one of those people that was wearing those pads, she grabbed me on my shoulder, and I was like, yo, what? Like, why you grab me? And she was like, oh, where you going? Because we have to. And I'm like, yo, I'm going to the bathroom. She was like, oh, you could go ahead. So in my mind, I'm like, I could go ahead, as if you're giving me permission. I brush it off, whatever. I just went to the bathroom. So now I'm inside the bathroom for a little minute because I'm constipated. TMI, but this is really the situation. So I'm constipated. So I'm in there for like 5 minutes. And then she comes in there and checks on me. You know what I'm saying? She like, yo, I just want to make sure you're all right if you need anything. So I was like, oh, all right, cool. You know, if you don't mind, if you could get me some water. So she got me a bottle of water that helped. You know what I'm saying? But I was still in there another 5 minutes. And please excuse the graphic, but this is what I'm trying to say. This delayed time to make this situation happen. Checked on again. She came in again to check on me. And that's when I'm like, damn, like, what do you think? I'm trying to escape? Why y'all on me like that? Like, you understand? So now when I go back in there, for long story short, when I go back in there, the type of questions that's being asked of us, they said that we have to do this training. We have to do all of the days. You can't leave. You can't do nothing. You can't know what it's about. And when you finish the training, you can't tell nobody else what it's about. You know what I'm saying? So when the black woman facilitator was telling everybody, she said, does everybody agree that what's said here stays here? And then she told everybody to stand. So all 100 of us stand. So while all 100 of us stand, 2 people that's dressed in those army pad shoes, a man and a woman, they're walking down the aisles and they're looking past each row, making sure that everybody was standing up. And it was very intense and like robotic. Like if somebody like what happens if somebody sitting down, you gonna snuff them? That's how, you know what I'm saying, they was moving. So then I was like, whoa, you know. So then she told everybody to sit down. And then she asked another question. She said, okay, now how many people are gonna go through with the training? So she told everybody to stand up. Now I stood up because I understood what's happening. I already knew I wasn't doing this training, but I stood up. I'm not gonna be singled out. And the 2 people that was singled out, I knew it was gonna be some shit, and it sure was. Just like they walked up, those people with those padded Coming to America outfits, like walking down, up and down the aisles, making sure that everybody is standing. Everybody's doing this. Oh, and then the 2 people that wasn't, they stood over them. And then the lady came to them and said, explain to us why you don't want to do it. So I was like, whoa. And it was very intense because she was talking like down to the lady, and the lady looked like she'd been sleeping on the streets, and she's trying to, like, I don't know, hope that this program can help her through whatever she go through. So, but she spoke up for herself, you know what I'm saying? And she was like, basically, I don't want to do it because I feel like I could benefit from part 2. I feel like where I was at before, I had, you know what I'm saying, healed from that, but I still could benefit from part 2 rather than this. So she said, so the facilitator said, nah, if you do part 1, if you don't do part 1, you can't do part 2. So she started, long story short, she started talking down to the lady. The lady started talking back to her, like, how is this to help people and you talking to me like that? If I don't want to do it, how you going to tell me what's beneficial for me and you don't even know me? You understand? So that caught her attention. She apologized in front of everybody. Then she asked the guy that stood up was the guy who was standing outside talking about this is a satanic cult. So the fact that he's standing up like, I'm not doing this, I'm waiting to hear what he got to say. And you know what he said? He blamed it on his heart. He said he has a heart condition that I don't know. He's on some type of machine. He could die any minute. Like even right now, his heart is beating at, I think, 9%. So obviously, who's gonna argue with that? But then he looked at her and he was like, "But I know what you're doing," and like that, So I'm like, "What the fuck is?" I had enough. I saw enough. They broke for lunch. Excuse me, dinner. They told everybody break for dinner, and I left. I called my director, told her I'm not going to do this program. And everything that was said and every way that I felt about it, so they could whatever they need to do. And she told me write that shit up in an email because that human resource director was supposed to be there. And then she went and checked on all those other trainings that she was referring me to. And she didn't say that those were satanic, but she said that they were very odd and just said, don't do none of the trainings, that I didn't have to do none of the trainings. Just do the therapy, coach and all that other shit. And then I started dropping them off because after that, I started to feel like something. But I'm telling you, man, when she had to answer to that email, she talking about giving my name and stuff. So I'm like, I don't care, give them my name. But then my director like, but why would you give her name if it's something like this that happened? You know what I'm saying? I just was on it like, if I said something, I'll stand by it. But I didn't understand that. Like, you can't go away from this. I don't know what this lady got.
Plus, as a release, as a result, you release eventually, ostracized or whatnot, right?
Yep.
Lady, you talk to the district attorney office. You have a telephone conversation with this attorney. And in that conversation, you're talking about fraud. You're talking about a lot of things, right?
Right.
I'm gonna go to what my notes or what I looked at right here. Give me 1 second.
Yep.
You talked about corruption, fraud, death threats, fake therapy. Talk about that. We talk this turn. And all this records on a channel, the Revolutionary, plus the Revolution. What is your YouTube channel?
Oh yeah. This says I'm on Sapphire's stream right now. It's Puzzle the Revolutionary.
I'm saying with them, you have recording the videos on YouTube. YouTube is the Revolutionary, the puzzle.
Yes, Puzzle the Revolutionary.
Yeah, all this I'm asking about, y'all can go check her YouTube channel out. It's in the description. Explain to me, we're talking dear, what you was talking about and what you're talking about this company, organization.
So again, at the time, based off of my experience and what I was learning on the job, right? It started to trigger the trauma, and part of what I spoke about in these therapy sessions that I was having with all of these people was about the Ford Foundation, to the point that they wrote a letter to me after giving me a pay increase. They wrote a letter and it had stipulations of what we agreed upon based on the trauma that Ford Foundation have caused me. You understand what I'm saying? So when I say hold philanthropy accountable, when I hashtag William, tell them what you did to me, is because there was harm there that they don't want nobody to know about, but they can't be having other people be held accountable and they themselves are not held accountable. So, I don't understand because of the way that the organization was set up, all these Black people being empowered in all this kind of way, I felt like it was a safe place to have these conversations. And I've been there almost 2 years, and so we empower each other in that way. But it's like I'm making complaints about their largest funder, as well as I just protested against them and just joined into a movement who just became outcasted and blackballed. You understand what I'm saying? So Now, I don't understand that this is a team assigned to me by this human resource director, right? The breathwork coach, she knew her prior. They worked before. The healing coach slash former activist, she knew her before, you know, and then they knew the therapist that they referred to me. So here's where I began to realize that there was something wrong. First of all, I stopped seeing the breathwork coach because yes, she was helping me to breathe. So breathwork is like just deep breathing, intentional breathing, and, you know, allowing oxygen to flow through your mind, whatever, but mainly to build your lungs. And so that helps you with emotional, like with trauma, and it helps to release all that. And it was helping. But it's like she'll open me back up by asking me these personal questions. But it was that the last session that we had, they was using like dongs and stuff like that. And I remember at that satanic cult training that I confirmed, and I'll tell you how I confirmed it, because I didn't confirm it there in the conversation with the district attorney. It wasn't confirmed. It's just that I knew that it was something fraudulent happening, and there was something behind it, but I couldn't confirm it, right? But you need to understand that the therapist that they had hired me afterwards to see, she was in Puerto Rico, and I had therapy over the phone, and I had one conversation with her. And people would say, well, why would you talk to somebody in Puerto Rico? I mean, it was during COVID, so no matter what, I would have had a conversation off the phone, so I didn't think nothing of it. But these people had referred it to me because for 6 months, they've been having therapy sessions with me, but they weren't hired to do that job, and they don't have a license to do that job. So they're playing around with people's trauma, snatching information from them, and doing illegal stuff that they're not supposed to do, right? As well as they refer me to this therapist. They pay this therapist for these services that's in Puerto Rico. So that's the second therapist. The first one, I only seen her a few times, and then it was this therapist. And the one session that we had, how I know that she's a part of a satanic cult, I don't know that. I just know that she helped me to identify what I was feeling and where it started at. So this is significant because it's like, where did it start? It started at the age 20. When and to identify like where am I at, like levels of 6, 7, 8, and what emotion was I stuck in. And so the emotion that I was stuck in was sadness. So these people have learned that the emotion that I was stuck in from the age of 20 was sadness, and they just used that to keep me stuck in sadness. And I found this out because after I'm just going to fast forward a little bit. After they wrongfully fired me for demanding the name, the first and last name, because I had her first name and her information, but I was like, wait a minute, this therapy session was good, but I never signed a HIPAA form. And then I was like, shit, I don't know her last name, but it's because it's referred from my job, and all of this is for me to do my job. I'm just automatically thinking they wouldn't do something illegal, but then it is, you understand? So when I asked them for the name, that's when it became a problem. And then I had already stopped seeing the breathwork coach, and I was only seeing the healing coach. So when I asked for this therapist's name, because a friend of mine who do tarot readings, well, she's not a friend of mine no more, because I found out that she snaked my movement as well. You know, so this is a big situation that people need to try to follow and understand, because of the 700 grievances that I filed in prison, I became a target from the COs in prison when I started speaking out about it. But what was happening to me at Borealis was completely different from what was happening to me online at that time. That was targeted towards my movement for formerly incarcerated women. And so once she started telling me that this lady in Puerto Rico and the questions that she was asking me sounds like she's into some type of witchcraft, and then she heard about the satanic training, she told me that, like, that's not a good situation, that you need to ask them for her name so you could look her up. And when I did that, they basically fired me. And I'll tell you this, I have email communication, all this is well documented, and that's part of the problem, is that all of this problems from Ford, I have CC'd my sister on all of this. She has been involved in my life. We spoke every day, and she knew the challenges, helped me through my challenges. My older sister, you know, and that's how she was. That's how she is to her siblings, you know. And so when I'm going through this experience, I also had her as my beneficiary, that in case something happened to me, that life insurance that they gave me, it would go to her. And the idea that when they had locked me out of my email and they shut my access down for my computer, because I had alerted all of those grantees that we had funded, I had alerted all of them of a dangerous situation for everybody. And I could share that at another time. But I never said nothing about the satanic cult stuff to them. And that wasn't the reason that I had gotten fired, as there was reason why I had gotten fired.
Let's talk about how the conversation went with you talking to the DA. then I want to still go into talking about the sister's death. You still no problem with that?
Yeah. So the problem with holding okay. So how did I get into the conversation with the district attorney? So the problem is that during all the time when I started to first receive these death threats, before I even knew Borealis was connected to all of this, you understand? I was reaching out to a lot of other organizers like My Son, like Until Freedom, like a lot of different organizations that I had connected with during incarceration, as far and as well as formerly incarcerated people that's connected to other organizations. The thing is, if I'm complaining about philanthropy, no organization wants to help me, the activists that they talk about that nobody really else is, and all this other stuff, right? But they don't want to support me through the situation of what I'm going through as a result of a brazen act that I've done for generations to benefit from, because they get money from philanthropy. And philanthropy, if you're gonna go against them, they're not gonna give you money the next year, is what they think in their mind, which is not really true, because they have to, by tax code, give away 5% of their money, which means they're looking for people to give that money away to, or else they're gonna get taxed 30%. So they're looking for people to give money to, but a lot of people cower to them because their lifestyle and their life is built on the income that they receive from these philanthropic organizations. So people have turned their back on me. You hear that stuff Nicki Minaj talk about? It's crazy to me. Like, I'm up against millionaires, billionaires, and machines. The billionaires are the Ford Foundation. The millionaires are Borealis, Bar Prison Initiative. And the machines are Google, Instagram, and Facebook. I've been targeted by all of these organizations, you know? And so it's like, if I can't, all of these, I've been targeted by all of these large tech companies that the platforms that we use, and we're all targeted by them. All the activists, all the fake accounts that's following us, pretending to be Black people, and their white supremacists behind these accounts, but they want to screw with our minds as well as infiltrate movements and other things. That's different from what happened to me. When my movement was infiltrated, the power and leadership movement, I started to, there was like demonic names, demonic images, and they started interfering with my account once I made it public. You understand what I'm saying? I'm gonna get back to the district attorney, but what you need to know is this: after speaking to the district attorney is when I went on this movement. And so, but like I told you, when I spoke to them, I didn't know that was a satanic cult. I just knew what I felt. I knew they were frauds, and I knew that training was weird. And so when I went into behind these accounts that were following me and writing all this stuff on it, had demonic names and demonic images, I had clicked behind the accounts, and I was going in their stories, going in their posts. Before that, I would just block them. Now I'm looking in the stories, looking in their posts, and inside of the stories, they're tracking me. They're illegally monitoring and surveilling my whole entire life. And I was like fucked up behind it. Like, there's fucking memes of my whole goddamn life in there. Like, you understand what I'm saying? It's not, you're not gonna see me, but you're gonna see a skinny girl with glasses dressed just like me, and the whole thing of my life. That's one thing. The other thing is, behind these stories was that one conversation that I had with that therapist in Puerto Rico. You understand what I'm saying? That name that I've demanded and asked for is the reason. That was the tip of the iceberg. They couldn't provide it to me. They had to fire me, because that would prove that that's not a real therapist. And it would prove that you hired a fake therapist, and that this other wellness team is fraudulent. And if it's not true, why did they all get fired? Why did the president get fired? The vice president get fired? The human resource director get fired? And then this whole wellness team that was hired by the HR director, they also got fired. And then they fired me after giving me just an evaluation and 3 pay increase within the last 6 months. There's no reason to fire me. This is called illegal. It's called corruption. It's called that if any light shines onto this, then the shit that they was doing there that ain't got nothing to do with me, that corruption, then that gets blown out of proportion as well. But that ain't got nothing to do with me. You can't be taking advantage of people like me, but then putting me to be the criminal. That's why it's so hard for me to report crimes on the Ford Foundation, Bar Prison Initiative, and Borealis Philanthropy. You understand what I'm saying? And the idea that I have to go to a district attorney, you know what I'm saying? Because I don't want to go to the cops. I went to a district attorney because they're above the cops, right? And at the same time, I needed to know, did what happened to me, like I needed to confirm it from some type of law enforcement figure to say, well, was this illegal? And she said, absolutely it was. You put this to the attorney general. You understand what I'm saying? Like, this is definitely illegal. The thing is it civil or criminal? And of course it's civil. Of course, you know, when I talk to lawyers, they want to hire they want to represent me easily for the wrongful termination. That's easy, but they don't want to get into this other satanic stuff that's happening. And then I'm still receiving death threats from these people. And they're actually confirming to me that they killed my sister now. Because the more that I speak out, just like before, they don't stop doing what they're doing when I talk about it.
How they doing that?
More.
How they confirming? How they confirming that?
How am I confirming it?
How they are confirming it to you?
What you mean?
No, you say they are confirming it. I said, how are they confirming that it was a part of her death?
It's on my page. Look at my Instagram page. The accounts that try to follow me and then I block them. You know, they got real blood on their on their images. This is what I'm saying. Is the images?
What happened to your sister?
They're writing in their posts.
What happened to your sister?
What happened to my sister? Okay, so my sister just died suddenly in her home, and it's a big mystery because I'm the last person to talk to her. You understand what I'm saying? And when I had a conversation with her on the phone just hung up. And so it's 10 o'clock at night. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe she sleeps. Maybe she's about to go to sleep. You understand? And so I left it until the next day. The next day, me and another family member went over there and was ringing her bell, calling her up. You know what I'm saying? Check on her. No answer. And then all of a sudden we get a call the next day from a detective that she died. She's just dead. How? Autopsy started. The medical examiner, medical investigator, they don't know how she died. The medical investigator has her organs in her hands, like young. She said, your sister died young and healthy. In other words, these are fresh, nothing wrong with these organs. So none of them shut down. Urine came back, sample, clean. How did she die? We don't know. It's a mystery. She's young and healthy. Don't nobody just die young and healthy, man. And if you could tell me that, then why work out? Why exercise? Why eat healthy? You know, why worried about processed food and all that stuff? Why?
So you feel like what you went through with that organization connects with your sister's death?
Yes, and I'm going to tell you something. The human resource director from Borealis Philanthropy, during my time of trauma with, they have records, they have financial records that they have paid for my studio sessions. They have financial records that they have paid for my therapist. They have financial records that they needed a whole wellness team to pay for services that I needed, that they have taken advantage of and fired me because I reported it as fraud. That's number one. Number two is my sister was a beneficiary. And when they locked me out of my computer, they called my girlfriend's phone number. And I was like, wait a minute. What? So I'm thinking this is something different because at this time I didn't know it was them. Then they called me on my phone, the human resource manager, not the director, the manager. I'm not going to use names. I'm going to use their positions. And she called me and I was like, yo, the computer just shut off. Like, what happened? She was like, oh, that was us. So I was like, that was y'all. Because before all that, they wanted to know what's going to make you feel safe and what's all this. Got all the information, pump me more. What's going to make me feel safe and all this stuff before they fired me. And lied and said that they wasn't going to do this and that. So my whole thing is, when she called me, I said, yo, was that you that just called my girlfriend's number? She said, that was me. That was me. And I said, why? I said, her number is not my personal contact. But this is how much to the human resource director of Borealis had gotten so personal into my life and acted like she was such a fan of my music, such a fan of my movement. You understand what I'm saying? And so when she had retrieved my girlfriend's number and the fact that they're calling me now, the job, it didn't make sense to me. And then she said, oh, I'm sorry for calling her number. That's right. You don't have her number down as your emergency contact. It's your sister. So it's like, at the time, I'm like, but then why would you have my file open right now? It was weird to me. And then the human resource director, in the time she was pumping me for information, she was asking me, the last conversation we had is how I knew that something wasn't right with her. Because she started asking me real personal questions. Before that, all these questions was about prison. Now she want to know about my family, like how many siblings do I have and which ones am I close to? Like, am I close to all of them? I'm like, I'm close to all of them, but I'm like, why? Like, it just became weird. Then she asked me about my day of arrest. My day of arrest. Remember what day was I arrested? I was arrested on June 26, 2004. My sister died on June 26 of 2021. This human resource director specifically asked me about that date and specifically asked me if that date kicked up trauma for me. And I told her that it didn't. I don't do dates. Birthdays come. I've been to prison. Dates don't mean nothing. It's just every day is a different day. And sometimes, yeah, it might be, but I don't do dates. So she's trying to convince me that that date does kick up for me and that I don't know if it will. And then I'm like, that don't, okay, whatever. You understand what I'm saying? Whatever you want, think. Feel me? And so, but when my sister dies after all of this take place, not just all of this takes place, I didn't just get death threats. People could talk all they want. But when those death threats turn into real life situations, where there's a situation when I'm on the highway coming from Pennsylvania, I knew that I was being tracked and monitored. I just couldn't be able to say why, because all this was new to me. You understand what I'm saying? And I'm on the way driving from Pennsylvania back to New York. And I got my peoples in the car with me. Three of my peoples in the car. So it's a full car. And I'm driving during social. Hold on a second. This ain't the first murder attempt. But this is when I realized, nah, that was attempted murder. You understand? That was a legit hit. This is social distancing. So the highways was free. You understand? And as I'm driving on the highway, it's 50. So I'm going like maybe 60 or whatever. And then there's another car I see from glaring. It was nighttime. So these lights are glaring from behind me fast, you know, and then so I moved over to the next lane because I'm like, they way too fast as they're entering into the intersection. And so that car flies on the highway past me, goes into the same lane that I just moved away from their lane, right? So they go into the middle lane and stop short. They stop short on the highway. Who stopped short on the highway? And I double pumped the brakes. Double pumped them and it stopped short, but it still created a collision. And I saw that from a mile away. So it was like the fact that it had an impact, that was intentional. And it was a Jewish guy that had came out of that car he had a yarmulke on, a little trench coat, glasses, and he had Florida plates. Where I get a lot of these death threats phone calls and these stalker ass and harassing ass phone calls from Florida. You understand what I'm saying? So now the significance of that is that my vehicle had gotten hit just a week before. You understand what I'm saying? My vehicle got hit while it was parked. I came to the car. Somebody left a note on top of the car's windshield saying to call them. And then when I saw the damage, I'm like, what? Call them. They was like, I pay for it. I'll do this. I'll do that. You know how the person was? The person was Jewish. So the person that hit the car while it was parked was Jewish, which is random, right? And then they sent it, they got it to their place because they're going to pay for the damage. So, of course, I'm not going to pay for damage that somebody else did. You understand? And not to go through the insurance, we went through their people's. And all of a sudden, just a week later, I'm getting hit on the highway in this type of way where nobody stops short on the highway. You report that? What's that to report? They're not reporting that. So I hired a private investigator to stop all this bullshit. You understand what I'm saying? And when I hired that private investigator, the problem with that is that I'm on unemployment. I can't afford that. You understand what I'm saying? Now they done shut all of this stuff off. But the thing is, I have to go and dig into my retirement fund now. You know what I'm saying? And take everything out that I've earned that I should have never lost because this job wrongfully fired me because of the bad actors. You understand? And so now I'm taking all of this money out, everything, to pay for this private investigator just for him to tell me what? Do you know what all of these names and links of death threats and death attempts coming from? It's coming from foundations, big corporate. I said, well, who do I have problems with, man? Foundations, big corporate. It's not coming down to no average person. So even that license plate of the person that hit me 3 days before my sister passed, I just got that information. You understand what I'm saying? Printing out stuff, they see everything that I'm doing. And it's hard to explain this to people because a lot of us barely know how to use the internet or technology.
I'm sorry to hear about what happened to your sister. My condolences. May she rest in power.
She don't rest in power, right?
I support you 100%, and your fight and struggle. A GoFundMe is also in the description. I'll be donating to that as well. Anybody want to donate to the GoFundMe and what have you? Can you explain the GoFundMe to everybody what it's all about?
So the GoFundMe is about the fact that I had reported corporate crimes. I had tried to report corporate crimes that the district attorney already told me it was a crime, as well as to all the things that were happening to me where I'm being stalked. You know what I'm saying? Stalks, illegally surveilled, monitored, attempts, like people burglarizing my apartment at the same time I'm trying to get support from. It's a long story. 17 911 calls after my movement is infiltrated. 17 911 calls after I find Borealis evil cult. 17 911 calls after I've never been harassed by demonic accounts until I have found this satanic cult. You understand what I'm saying? All of this stuff that I'm experiencing now, it has intensified and it's happening, and it is tied to that cult, because the things that they're sending me, the things that they're telling me, is based off of things that I've had in those therapy sessions. Those are only therapy sessions I've ever had. You know, so where else would it come from? You know, so you know, the GoFundMe is basically to help people to try to understand that I had tried to report all of these corporate crimes, and the fact that my sister just dies young and healthy, I'm gonna need money to fight against these people. You understand what I'm saying? I already used all my money to fight against them, and then I had to bury my sister. The cemetery bill is one bill, and then the funeral bill is another bill. That's 20,000 right there. And then we need a independent autopsy to tell us what happened to her, because you can't just have a dead body and say there's no cause of death. Then how do people die? How do people die then? I should just bungee jump right now then. What the hell is there to be afraid to if I could just wake up one day and just not be alive? It happens. I've researched that it happens, but there's a heart condition, a breathing condition. There's always still something attached. You understand what I'm saying? So the idea that I'm going to need the funding to pay back this debt that I use for my credit cards, you know, as well as to investigate this situation that the cops don't want to investigate. They're not looking at it as a crime. They said there was no signs of breaking and entering, that they're not looking at it as a crime. And the problem with that is because my car was broken into 12 times and there wasn't no signs of breaking and entering into either, because they use computers to get into certain things. And that's the world that we live in now. And if you look it up on the internet, cars can be broken into by using a computer. And that's a whistleblower right there on the car companies. They're going to tell you that on the internet. That's the biggest, quietest kept thing right now, that these new cars, you can access it. These hackers that know what they're doing, they can access it, and that's what they was doing. But they stole my hair. You understand? When they would ask me, did they steal anything? Yeah, they stole my hair. They stole my hair, they stole my comb, and they stole my insurance card. And they've been impersonating me online. And I've been spending this money on this private investigator, and now I had to bury my sister. You understand what I'm saying? So this is connected to my situation. And I had spoke to a 311 representative that had even told me, your sister's name is on all these email complaints, and then she just died suddenly. You damn right it's connected. Especially if district attorney already told you that was fraudulent what happened at Borealis. It's just a matter of whether it's civil or criminal, and now it's definitely criminal. There's a dead body involved.
Well, you know, thank you for telling the story. I really, really appreciate that. I know it's a lot to have on your mind, on your heart, on your spirit. There's a lot to talk about. You're welcome to come back.
Yeah.
And bring some more fresh, new information that would have you. But you sing in the music game. You do music. How long you been doing music? And we're gonna be playing your music video after you finish explaining how long you've been doing music. And I'm gonna drop some I was listening to. It's real nice.
Thank you. I've been doing music. I think I've been writing music probably since I was like 12 or younger. Like I just wrote music as a form of like journaling, and then I started getting serious right before I had got locked up, and then I continued to write during my incarceration. You know, it's just a form of healing and therapy, and also like teaching others and then sharing your work. You know, music is definitely healing.
Well, let's play this song. We're gonna give you in the live after we come back, and I want to ask you a question or two. We can roll from there. They go part of the revolutionary, y'all.
Yeah, facts. And also, he cut off.
No muzzle, my voice, my muscle. And to all the formerly currently incarcerated in our fam, your struggle is my struggle. Rest in power, Khalif Browder. Look, and yo, I done been through hell and back. When look at my face, can't even tell that that's a fact. They done had me caged, they done had me trapped for 11 years for not being a rat. The courts and the manipulation, police reports what they say keep changing. DA and my attorney every day, he just pay that. I peep things, that's why I'm out here fighting my demons, screaming no new jails, no new change. They gonna feel these things here in New York City. How the fuck you build a jail that's pretty when 80% of the population not guilty? Instead of living filthy away trial at home, America has never been trapped with its goal. If black people are still living captive and old, that's why I'm out here, cause we have to be bold. Brooklyn's finest, Brooklyn's soul. There's no guarantee that Rikers will even close. Just It's empty promises, and don't believe that violent shit. 80% jail charges, misdemeanors. And that's what the fuck is in that shit you feed us. Cause anybody knows you look at the way that they treat us, but they won't die right and defeat us. Hey yo, I got nothing to do with these chains. No new jails, let's just close like it's now. Cause if they build them, they're gonna fill them. Instead, let's tell them what to do with 11 billion. Peace, love, unity. What you're witnessing right now is just the true of me. What side are you on? I'm on the freedom side. Jails is the fucking reason Khalif died. You think that shit is gonna be in vain? How many more bloods will strip down these chains? How many more forced suicide? This ain't us against them. This is us against you and I. Centuries worth of distrust. House and field split up. Who with me? I need to know. I feel a sense of urgency. These cops is out here committing perjury. And feel a sense of surgery. Cause we silence our traumas. $4,000. But they ain't got our problems. They ain't really the enemy. They just some scholars. With a lot of talent, talking with forced balance. Which is always a challenge. I know it sounds unreasonable. And that's the link that greed will go. We ain't asking for the cheese. We just want out the trap. I don't want to be here talking about bring looking back. Cause New York City will never be the same. No new jails and no new chains. No more women and girls waiting in silence. Stay out here perpetrating this violence. And until we dress that, what do we really talking about? We already know you ain't funding this revolution. So what is you doing? It's a marathon. Yeah, forward movement. Incremental change. If we ain't gonna stand together in this Trump era, then we lost as the people. What the fuck are we doing? When the fuck are we gonna be equal? I need to know why you know. No new jail. It's puzzle motherfuckers in the back. You know me. Tell these motherfuckers who I am. Don't start no shit, won't be no shit, right? Brooklyn all day. Now let's stand up, cause I don't know who next that right now.
Yeah.
Oh, fire, spitting straight flames, fire.
Good looking.
I love that
Good
song,
looking.
your video. Congrats on that. I have a question or two, and we're gonna end it. Because of everything you told me, right? And we're gonna go back to your initial comments. You say you're going to college to be a paralegal, right?
Yeah, prior to prison, yeah.
Are you inspired by everything you've gone through to do paralegal work for the movement and for yourself and what have you?
Oh no, that paralegal stuff was prior to prison. Now is lawyer talk. Yeah, it's lawyer talk now. So, but yeah, I am to be able to be in a position to change policies more so than representing people to be able to change policies, because that's what it is. If I'm representing people in a broken system, then I'm gonna continue to be harmed in the same way that I'm harmed. So, that is one of my goals.
But tell the people how to reach out at you. You know what I'm saying? Thank you again for coming on my platform.
Yeah, thank you again for having me.
I'm gonna let you know she harassed me. Y'all should harass me.
Huh?
But let everybody know what's up. Let everybody know what's up.
Yeah. Thank everybody for staying to the end. And I just like to say, other than the GoFundMe, I was asking everybody to donate at least $5 to support what happened to my sister, and to get answers and to see if this is related, because it's not confirmed. It is an allegation, but it's a strong allegation based off of strong evidence, and there's just been barriers to success. But we're breaking down those barriers of the gatekeepers for getting these people to be held accountable. So holding philanthropy accountable is because I'm not able to get the support that I need from a lot of organizers, because they have painted this story about me, as well as the people are scared they won't get any more funding. And I think that we got to stand by each other more. Whether I'm gay or not, that shouldn't matter. The way that I talk, if I say the N-word, it might slip out sometimes. You know what I'm saying? It's just that I feel like we pick on each other for so many different things. Maybe I didn't say something in the right way, or I mischaracterized something, maybe, but look at what's happening to me, and what's happening to me because of who I am, because of the stance that I had taken, and look at who is happening by this organization who while I was already feeling isolated, had just further isolated me and created and caused more harm. But then turn to find out that there's strong evidence that they're part and linked to my sister's death. So other than donating and sharing the GoFundMe, if y'all not able to donate, please share it, as well as hit me up on my Instagram, Revolutionary Puzzle, if you have any resources to any attorneys, you know, that could also help to support, any other type of advocates that you know that's willing to support to find answers for my sister's death. Thank you.
Which YouTube channel again also?
Yeah, my YouTube channel is Puzzle the Revolutionary.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Major.
I'm so grateful to have you come on and bless the channel. You welcome your family. Now we don't care how you dress, how you look, how you sound, as long as you black though. And